I'm Lily, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It has been a while, which I feel like I say at the start of every single episode, but I have lots to share today. It's just going to be a rambly kind of everything I've been making, as is kind of the purpose of these knitting podcasts, I guess. Sometimes I like to chat about other things, about life as a designer, like in my last video where I spoke about what makes a knitting pattern sell or not, and had a bit of a brain dump in there. But for today I just have some finished objects to share, some things on my needles, what I've been working on, just general life chat really. So thank you for stopping by. One of the reasons it's been a while is because I've been just having a fun summer. I mean, summer's kind of over now, sadly. But I've been away, I've been with friends, I've been with my family, just, you know, out and about doing stuff. And also, for the last 6 years, I've been a part-time university student with the Open University. So I've been doing my degree very, very slowly, part-time, for the last 6 years, which just feels crazy to think, really, that I was 18 when I started, and I look back on my 18-year-old self. I lived in a different house, I was doing a different job, like it's strange to look back. It feels like a long time ago, it feels like a lifetime ago. And I'm like, gosh, that I started then, I have now actually finished. So yeah, I handed in my dissertation at the end of August, and it was a bit of an anticlimax really, so now I'm waiting on my results and I'll find out when I can actually graduate with my degree in astronomy and planetary sciences. I do not want to write about dark matter at any point in the near future. I've done enough of that lately. So now is full-time designing really, which is actually pretty much what I have been doing for the last few years anyway. Some other freelance work, and I mean, I had a long break between my last two modules that I finished the previous one last June and then didn't start this one until February, so it's not like I've not had extended periods of time away from studying, away from uni, where I've been fully focused on my own things, but it kind of feels like a mindset shift. Feels different. Then I always knew I had something to go back to, and that it was like, oh well, I'm still a part-time student. It's always there in the back of my mind, and the kind of feeling of, should I be working on uni, should I be working on design, should I be doing this, like, you know, that kind of internal debate of what should I be doing, trying to prioritise. So now that's done, I just have to wait for my results, and I am 100% knitwear designer now. Yeah, still doing the odd little other thing, but throwing myself fully into it, which is very nice to know that it's just my main thing. So yeah, that's kind of what's been taking my time lately. So over the summer I have done quite a bit of knitting. However, like I said, because of uni, because of being all over the place, I found it kind of hard to get into the groove. But in the last couple of weeks I feel like I finally, I don't know why I'm gesticulating so much today, apologies if that's annoying. Yeah, I've probably got into it again. I've been churning things out a lot quicker again, which feels nice. So yeah, I have a couple of finished objects to share. One that Dolly is wearing, another that is also a woolly one that I need to share, that I thought, oh, I'm not wearing those today. It's like 20 degrees, it's too warm for wearing a woolly sweater. I'll wear something else that is kind of new, not new. And I'm melting in this, so may have to change halfway through. So I'll just start with what I'm wearing, which is actually my Any Day cardigan. I'll do some cutaways instead actually. Yeah, this is my Any Day cardigan that I actually made 2 years ago now. It's chunky weight, but I use 2 strands of DK, so this is, I can't remember the exact percentages, but it's acrylic and cotton. Scipias, I don't know how you pronounce it, that yarn brand anyway, held double the DK weight, and yeah, I made this a couple of years ago. And I've worn it quite a bit actually, but I don't think, something just wasn't quite right about it, that I think I wasn't wearing it as much as I'd hoped. So it did have some fancy little buttons on it. I'll insert some photos of the original buttons that were there for the last 2 years. And I just thought it kind of needed a refresh. I think part of the reason, like it's a nice cozy style of cardigan, but I chose a really bright summery, this like cornflower blue colour, which means that it only really works with white, and but then something didn't quite look right about it with white, so I decided anyway to crochet around the edge. I have no idea what the yarn was, just some other cotton or acrylic or something, some white yarn from in my stash. Just did a round of single crochet, US double, can never remember, just around all the edges, and I think it just kind of finishes it. And I swapped the buttons for some plain white linen buttons that I picked up in Liberties whilst in London a few weeks ago, and I just think it kind of zhuzhes it up a bit in a way that it needed. So now I'm wearing it with linen trousers or white jeans or something. I've kind of learnt my lesson to not make, well, not make things because it is a nice colour, but learnt my lesson that making things in a colour that then clashes with jeans, with most denim, is then a bit awkward, because I would wear this with jeans all the time if it wasn't a horrendous clash. So yeah, and I'm thinking that maybe it'd be a nice idea to do another one, because the actual style of the design would be very fitting for autumn. It's a nice relaxed cardigan. My any day sweater is one of my most worn autumn winter items, and I made that in Rowan Brush fleece in a sort of oatmeal-y beige colour. And I think if I had an equivalent, not the same colour because that would be stupid, but like maybe a light grey or maybe just a neutral or a softer colour in some way that would work with denim, then I'd probably actually wear that loads in autumn too. And the pattern might be kind of seen as more of an autumn pattern as well, rather than it looking so overtly summery at the moment. So that's a thought. And yeah, I just kind of think it's quite nice to refresh older designs sometimes. So if you have a cardigan that is just looking a little bit tired, can highly recommend just whizzing a crochet hook around the edge and zhuzhing it up. Oh, got a bit squeaky there, I don't know what's up with me. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing, although even in this I'm quite warm, even though it's cotton and very loose, so yes. On to what I have actually been knitting next. So, Dolly's wearing this because I could not face wearing wool, however open it may be at the sides. My latest design, I can't tell how well it's showing up in the viewfinder there, I'll do some close-up clips anyway, is yet nameless. As ever, I do not come up with the names until the very last minute. But I am so happy with it. I don't know, oh, well, I might have to adjust Dolly. 1 second. Okay, Dolly's a bit taller now, so we can hopefully see the side detail better, because that is where all the fun part is. So I was thinking that I needed to do something transitional. I kind of didn't want to go from strappy summer tops straight into woolly jumpers. Oh, well, actually I did do a woolly jumper, but anyway. I wanted something else that is wearable, you know, the transitional months, all of that. And I think that sleeveless items, generally they're so practical and they tend to do quite well as patterns as well, because, you know, it works for a whole range of climates, all that kind of thing. So anyway, I wanted to do something sleeveless but a little bit of a different shape to my last couple of sleeveless patterns. So I guess you would call this a tabard, maybe a vest, maybe a slipover. So it's only joined at the sides here for like about 4 inches, 5 inches, something like that. Only a small amount of it is actually joined at the sides. Hopefully you can see there. Anyway, it's split there, and a very deep armhole. The idea being that you could wear it over all sorts through autumn and winter, so big sleeves, because we know I love a big sleeve, and dresses, just over a turtleneck maybe. Not on its own, it is too deep an armhole to be worn on its own, but maybe just over a tank top. Like, it was nice and flexible, and I just love that line of this nice deep armhole. So I kind of wanted these tiny little cap sleeves as well, and I'm so happy that on the first attempt it just worked out perfectly as I'd hoped. So the main body of it is in stocking stitch with cables that run down kind of what would be a princess seam if it was a sewn garment. Well, not quite, but it looks more like that on the body. Yeah, that the cables run down from the outside of the shoulder then down to the waist. So that's just a basic cable, and then we have some double moss stitch here, and then a slip stitch edging. And my idea was that the difference in gauge, the slip stitch edging and the cable just being positioned just so there, would just create the nice angle there where it kind of just cups over the shoulder, so it doesn't stick out like if you literally just chop the sleeves off a drop shoulder item. I didn't want that awkward, you know, like if you just chop the sleeves off this, then you'd be left with an awkward sticky outy thing there, and I didn't want that. but I also didn't want it to end just on the shoulder here. I wanted something a little bit further out just for, you know, a different line. I think that's quite nice when you get the broader at the shoulders down to the waist look. So it just worked out nicely. Those cables sit exactly where I'd hoped. And then it would follow down to the side, so you do decreases built into these cables. That sounds more complicated than it is. It's not difficult, but it's just very nice and neat, so you don't actually see the decreases. Just keep stroking Dolly here. And then it would just taper in nicely down to the waist, attach for a couple of inches where the slip stitches become a cable here, and then split again. So luckily everything worked out just nicely. I'm going to amend the pattern ever so slightly from this, just because it's the perfect length on me for this side split to hit just in the right place after blocking, but I'm aware that on other people I'm 5'10.5" and very, very long waisted, so that distance on me is by no means average, so I will need to amend the pattern and therefore amend the decrease rate slightly. But that's the grading of this one is it's not straightforward, shall we say, but I'm enjoying the challenge. That's keeping me very busy this week, and I will hopefully have the pattern ready into test knitters. I'd said this week, but I think that might be wishful thinking. I think we might be looking more at next week because I've been doing some other patterns as well, but ready in time for autumn anyway, so that the pattern will definitely be out in October, hopefully. I'm going to say definitely, then I have to stick to it. Yes, so it's worked in worsted weight yarn, my yarn, which is Axis by Lilykate, produced by Fibre Space, 90% merino, 10% undyed Surrey alpaca. Done whole videos on that, don't need to waffle on about that anymore. This is in shade Lagrangian, which is, unfortunately, there is a typo on the labels. There was some, during the process of me choosing the names, then them getting passed on to the people who actually make the yarn, a typo slipped in, so it's written on the label as Lagrangian, which is incorrect, which is quite annoying, but it's just one of those things, isn't it? You have to roll with it, nothing you can do about it, so hopefully on the next run it'll be corrected. But this was one of the new shades for 2022, in addition to the original 12 shades, so this is one of the new 4. I wanted to do a nice neutral item that would have lots of wear and go with lots of items in my wardrobe, so happy with how it turned out. Maybe by the time this video goes up I will have thought of a name, maybe not, so moving on. The other item I've finished lately does have a name, so this is my slow down sweater, which I actually made before this one. I think I will put it on to show you some video clips actually, even though I may not, we'll deal with it. So I made this over summer. I think in my last episode I'd been knitting with this yarn, but a different project that had failed miserably, and it was just driving me mad, really making me fall out of love with knitting. I was not enjoying the fact that it wasn't going where I'd hoped, the design wasn't quite working out, and I thought, you know what, scrap it, move on, use the same yarn because I really wanted to do a sweater in this colour, but instead of trying to do something ribbed and fitted and puff sleeved and v-neck and all of that, just do a much simpler v-neck, a nice everyday kind of very wearable, loose, relaxed, casual type of item, because I'm aware that a lot of my designs are quite, not formal, but like what you'd wear to go out to a nice lunch rather than just your throw on every day. So I wanted to go for a bit of a more relaxed shape that would suit all body types and just be nice and simple and easy to knit. And I'm so glad I did, because it meant that I could actually just breeze through the knitting without stressing, without having to try it on every 2 seconds. So it's work from the top down, drop shoulder, cast on across the back, work some short rows to shape the back, neck and shoulders, then pick up stitches along those shoulders to work the fronts, so down here and down here with obviously v-neck shaping, and then the main detail being the detail that won't show up here probably, this sheer neck, which is just worked in a strand of mohair. So last time I was at the Yarn Loft in Colne, owned by my lovely friend Lily, I saw that there were some new shades of the Isaga silk mohair in the shop, and one of them was bright pink, and the shelf with that on was just opposite the shelf with my yarn, and I was like, Ooh. Cog started whirring, gotta do something with that. So I thought a nice way to use that, bearing in mind I was talking bright pink here, didn't want to do anything too wacky. I thought I'd just add a nice little sheer neckline. So it's super simple. The neckline is just in stocking stitch. Picked up to make a really nice sheer V along here. Luckily that also worked out right first time, that I wanted the V-neck to be deep enough to be considered, you know, a deep V, but not to the point where you would have to wear something underneath it. And obviously I was trying to take into consideration the fact that it would be sheer, so you wanted it to cover a bra and wanted it to not be like, you know, showing too much. But I have a real thing against V necklines that are like here. No, if you're doing it, do it properly. High or low, can't be doing with any necklines in between. That is a real sticking point of mine, that I do not like them. So yeah, the neckline just worked out nicely, and then I added some other little touches of mohair to the bottom of the sleeves, which have this gathered shaping in here, so just a little cuff. So there's a tiny bit of mohair on the bottom of the sleeves, and a tiny bit around the bottom of the hem, which is also shaped with short rows, just to dip ever so slightly. Don't know if that's apparent there at all. Just to dip slightly at the back, because I always find it works better. I like to wear a lot of my sweaters just tucked in a little bit at the front but then loose at the back, and I find that if the front is ever so slightly shorter, that is easier to do. So that's kind of a common feature of a lot of my designs. It's currently being test knit. I cannot remember what date I've set as the pattern release date. Sometime early to mid-October, I think. Can't remember off the top of my head. But test knit is making good progress through it. A couple of people have finished already. Again, this is worsted weight yarn, Axis by Lilykate, of course. So this is shade Neutrino, which is spelt correctly on the ball band. In the Issachar mohair that I paired it with. I mean, when you look at it there, it's not an absolute perfect match, but I think the overall impression is that it's close enough that when it's sheer against the skin, it's fine. And I think that shade's just called Hot Pink. Some people have done it in a matching mohair, some have done it in a contrast. I'd really like to see, maybe I should do some swatches of this actually, the mohair done as a stripe. Like maybe if you did a dark sweater in the main yarn is quite dark, and then did like a kind of skin tone then with dark stripes on the mohair, or just even skin tone and then dark just border. Oh, there's so many ways you could do it, and I think it would also look really good in just a cream or a neutral main yarn, and then the mohair being in stripes of loads of different colours, because they blend together so well that you'd get a kind of, yeah, a blended little rainbow look to the neck. I think that could be so cool. Do not have time to knit all these things. I get a bit like carried away with all of the ideas. So maybe the solution is just for me to do some swatches and kind of put the inspo out there and hope that someone will do it, just so I can see how it looks. But yeah, I'm very happy with that. Very glad to have a nice simple pattern. There was a joy to knit. It's nice to just breeze through nice comfortable amounts of stocking stitch. Never too much that it got boring, and I could just enjoy it. Enjoy knitting with the yarn that I think is great. Of course I'm going to say that, but I do. So yeah, pattern coming soon. So another finished object that my mum actually did most of the knitting of. We've kind of got a bit of a system going now where for some items I will write up the pattern, do the chart, get the tubular cast on done, you know, get the first little bit started, and then my mum knits the rest of it, which I'm very grateful for, or she knits a chunk of it, either way, and kind of means that I can get through more knitting quickly, so that's very nice, very helpful. And yeah, so I have a hat to share with you, which feels like I've probably got into autumn mode if I have a hat on the needles, or in the works anyway. So I'm not entirely sure when I'm going to be releasing the pattern, or if it's going to be like a standalone or with something else. I've not quite figured out the details of that. What my system's going to be, if I'm going to do a couple of hats together, TBC on the details. But anyway, I did this swatch and then absolutely loved how it turned out. I had to turn it into a hat straight away. I'll just pop it on. This version, it fits me, but it's quite snug, but I mean, I'm not hating it. I'm not hating the the snug fit. It's not going to blow off, that's for certain, but this will be the middle size of 3, so I'll make one a little bit smaller, one a bit bigger, and then hopefully we'll cover kids to adults of all sizes within that range. Again, this does not have a name, but it is a cable hat with stripes that just so conveniently work that it kind of, I don't know how well this is going to be showing on camera, that the cables pop where the crosses and the stripes intersect, and I just really love the stitch pattern. It is surprisingly simple. I'm now thinking I want to use it in a sweater but with the colours reversed, so like a classic cabled white sweater but with some navy in there, and it was just, yeah, really nice to knit, the sections of it that I did anyway. The crown shaping comes together just nicely, got some nifty little decreases in there. So it's definitely not time to wear hats yet. I am still rather warm today in my cardigan, but can't do any harm to get ahead, can it? To be organised and have some autumn winter patterns in the works already. So that's another one coming up. I'm going to have gone from having a bit of a break from running test knits over summer, which is quite nice to not be like checking Slack all the time. I mean, I love working with my test knitters. Everybody is always fantastic. It's nice, so nice to have that kind of community, but every day kind of being, oh, I hope no one's found any issues. I hope it's alright. So over summer I kind of, while I was focusing on my uni, didn't have any test knits on the go, and that was quite nice. I'm going to go from that to having probably 4 test knits on the go at once. So yay admin, going to be fun, but it feels good to be properly back into the swing of things anyway, so no complaints from me. I just have one more WIP to show you, I think, and then I will probably stop rambling and get on with writing up some patterns. So my final item to show you is currently on my needles. Haven't got too far with it, and this is a second abidos top. So the first that I made in white, I made it while I was away in Austria in May. The pattern was released in July, and lots of people asked about a long sleeve version. So the original is like the tiniest of little cap sleeves. I'll insert some photos here. I think I wore it in my last episode, can't remember. Yeah, so I'd already been thinking of doing a long sleeve version, and lots of people asked about it, and the pattern has been really popular. People have done lots of different colours. It's just, there's been a knit along running that isn't strictly for that pattern, but a lot of people have been knitting it, and I thought, right, time to crack on and get on with this long sleeve version. If people want it, I better give the people what they want. So I'm using a more wintry colour this time. I actually decided whilst I was in Amsterdam back in June, shortly after making the first version, I decided I was going to do a second version, so picked up yarn there. Took me absolutely ages to decide a colour. I was in the Stephen and Penelope shop for a good while, dithering over what to use. A couple of people asked me why I don't just use my yarn, but it's just because the pattern's in DK weight, my yarn's worsted, and I don't want to have to do all the numbers from scratch, and I think it's just nice in DK. So I eventually decided on Durarum Natura Ulysses, which is, I think it's labelled, is it labelled as a sport weight? I can't actually remember what it's labelled as. Yeah, the ball band says 3 to 3.5 millimeters, so I think they are calling it a sport weight. But I'm knitting it on a 4 and it seems just right, I think, because it's quite a plump, bouncy yarn. As soon as I looked at it, I thought, yeah, that looks about right. I'm generally quite good at telling by eye what gauge something's going to knit up to. So luckily, my swatch did match the gauge, and it's turned out just right for this pattern that I can start with all my existing numbers. So then I had to find a matching mohair. There wasn't one in the shop where I bought the yarn, the DK yarn, sport weight, whatever yarn from in Amsterdam, in Stephen and Penelope. They had a couple of different mohairs, but none of them that matched perfectly. And I thought I had some at home that would, in my head it was a perfect match. I was like, oh, it's kind of a chocolatey brown. And then when I got home I was like, huh, that does not match at all. It was way too purpley, either way too purple or way too red. So then kind of parked the idea for a while whilst I worked on a couple of other things, the pink sweater mainly. And then whilst my friend Kiliana was over to stay a few weeks ago, test knit a friend who's become one of my best friends. It's so cute. She came over to stay and I showed her around my favourite places in Lancashire, which of course included some yarn shops. So we visited Lancaster and the Ethel&M shop with Melanie and Northern Yarn. I stopped by there to see Kate as well. And I was hoping to find a matching mohair in one of these shops. And luckily I eventually did, even though at first glance I thought, right, none of those are they're not fitting the bill, they're still not the right kind of tone, until Kate pointed out this shade, which was hiding behind the others. This is Onion Yarn, Onion Knit, whatever the brand's called, Onion something or other, silk mohair, which is a lot lighter than what I was looking for. I think maybe because I had in mind a dark shade, I didn't particularly, I don't know, maybe it just didn't register, but then when I put these together, oh, so pretty! And it's super shiny. It's this mohair it's 60% mohair, 40% silk, whereas the kind of standard proportion is 70-30. That's what you generally see in Rowan Kid Silk Haze, that's what the Issachar silk mohair is. They're almost all the 70-30, but then this is 60-40. So the silk core is a little bit more visible, and it gives it that real nice sheen, and I'm absolutely loving how it is knitting up. So this time around I don't have to keep checking that the pattern's working, keep trying it on every 2 seconds. I can just breeze through the yoke, and I'm realising how addictive it is to knit. So I did most of this in one evening, alternating between mohair on large needles, mohair on small needles for increase. Not sure why the recording cut off there. I reached the maximum time and my battery is flashing, but anyway, I'll wrap up quickly. So I'm working on this. I figured that all I need to do in order to have the pattern ready for test knitting for the long sleeve version is I just need to knit the yoke, the upper front and upper back that come after the yoke, then a little bit of the body, an inch or two, enough to be able to pick up stitches into it, and then one sleeve, and then I can block it at that point and write it up and send it to test knitters. So in theory that shouldn't take too long, and then test knitters can be working on theirs whilst I finish the rest of the body and the second sleeve, because all the numbers will be in place by then. So that was kind of my thinking, crack on with that, and then hopefully that will also be available in October. I probably will keep the test knit very small because the main pattern, all the main detail of it has been tested already, so it's only going to be the sleeves, so I will not need very many people, but we'll be posting a testing call for that I'm sure at some point in the next couple of weeks. And I think that's all I have to share now. I'm seeing that light flashing at me. Always end up timing it like this. So yes, I'm going to go and crack on with pattern writing, knitting, everything like that at the moment now that I'm fully back in the game. I felt like I've been a little bit all over the place headspace wise, and now started to get the ball rolling again and go from one design to the next, and my motivation and joy for all of this has kind of come back, so I'm feeling very happy about that. And thank you very much for watching. Please tell me what's on your needles, if you're feeling seasonally inspired like I am. If you've cast on any of my patterns, I would love to hear about it as always. It's lovely to chat to you guys, and thank you very much for watching. Speak soon.